Two terror suspects have been arrested in southern France for allegedly plotting an attack in the city of Marseille. The French Interior Minister is saying it was being timed to coincide with the first round of Sunday's presidential election. RT Charlotte Dubenski reports from Paris.
The French Interior Minister has said this terror attack was imminent. We understand it was two suspects who've been arrested, both in their 20s. We believe that one of them was recently a convert to Islam, but both of them had been radicalized. And when police raided the apartment that they were renting in Marseille, they actually found explosives there, similar to the explosives that were used in the Paris attacks. Security here is incredibly tight. France has been in a state of emergency since 2015, since those Paris attacks, that night of terror. And we understand some 50,000 soldiers and police will be out in force ahead of the voting at the 67,000 voting booths. There have been tensions and protests over the last few days, clashes between protesters who were out demonstrating against the National Front, and there were clashes with police officers on Monday and on Sunday here in Paris. This is a flavour of what's been happening. It's not just protests that we've seen against the National Front. Just a week ago, wardens at Europe's largest jail, which is in the south of Paris, were outside of the jail protesting over their pay and working conditions. And over the last few months, we've seen sporadic protests here across Paris. Almost every week we've been out covering some of the protests with people unhappy about the current situation here in the country.
The situation is very tense with this menace of terrorist attacks, and as well as with the current situation of the political presidential elections. And both of them combined, I think, are making everybody quite jittery and giving a lot of work to the police, who of course have to try to separate these two situations and make sure they don't combine, because this could be a game changer in the last stages of this presidential election. If there would be an attack in these few days, this could change a lot of things. Actually, the police did inform the three of the main candidates last week, that these are Macron, Le Pen, and Fillon, that they could be targeted, that they have doubts that there would be an impending terrorist attack against them. I think two of the obvious targets today would be maybe François Fillon, who has had harsh words against Islamists. The obvious one is Marine Le Pen. I think obviously she has been very strong stance against terrorism, against the Islamization of the French society.
Well, yeah, as the French presidential candidates entered that final leg of their campaigns, and one activist tried to disrupt Marine Le Pen's rally in Paris last evening. Albeit with a bunch of flowers. What was that about? Well, a female attacker looked like she was trying to grab her, albeit with a bunch of flowers, but was quickly blocked by security and removed from the stage. Following the interruption, Le Pen got a rousing response to a speech from the crowd, though.
My first measure as president will be to reinstate France's borders. The situation is very grave. Every day there are hundreds of additional foreigners who enter France to leave. For many in France, mass migration is a form of oppression. It is not an opportunity. It's a drama instead.
Well, let's talk about the trouble. We spoke to a French lawyer who says violent actions demonstrate these days the intolerance of protesters.
It is well known that violent arguments, violent ideas are pushing persons who are sometimes too weak to control themselves, to violent actions. So there is a thing that we have to know when you're regarding the situation of France. It is true that we are having a very complicated election. This campaign was such a pity campaign because of the cases against Marine Le Pen and François Fillon. And the thing is that there has a lot of issues that have to be resolved with this next election, presidential election.
So just a handful of days now to go to the first round of voting. The latest polls suggest the National Front's Marine Le Pen is running neck and neck with the En Marche candidate Emmanuel Macron. And given that those reports are out too, that some 500,000 people have reportedly received double ballots, if you work that out, it's equivalent to about 1% of the voters. It could have a decisive role on deciding who claims the final place in the Élysée Palace. Here's what a French National Assembly member had to say about the problem of double ballots.
Dishonest voters can cast their ballots twice, and there is a real risk of electoral fraud. It's all the more significant as this year the result looks extremely tight.
I can tell you we reached out to the French Central Electoral Commission for comment because the authorities initially said they wouldn't investigate the potential fraud until after the election. We haven't heard anything back yet. If we do, we'll let you know. You'll be the second to know.